morning from my side to all of you, and welcome on behalf of IMTMA for the program Design of Gearbox for Industrial Machineries. Um this is, as you know, is a 5-day module, and every day it's all about 3.5 hours that we are going to spend on the subject from our subject matter expert, Mr. Arun Kumar, who would be handling 4 days, and one another expert, Mr. Maksud Kalak, would be coming to discuss other, the elements of the gearboxes. Uh, yeah, just to set the context, gearbox is not a new technology. It's available in since multiple decades. Because it has its own advantages from the mechanical perspective, uh, in terms of going for a fixed high reduction ratios, speed reduction can happen, and higher torque. And as well as it's a compact solution for transmission. When we compare with other, the power transmission, the kinematics that are available, it's a, as we know, it's a positive drive, and it's very compact in size, and it has a very high velocity ratio. That's a major advantage, and it's also a cost effective. uh, Even today, I think, since the last, couple of decades, servo technology has become much popular. By and large, it replaces, it could be another alternate for the output what we get from the gearbox, the servo technology in electronics, servo technology, because that technology gives the similar, by changing speed without altering the power, and the torque is also is possible to get higher. But the servo technology, even though it is much superior compared to the gearbox, but it's not a solution everywhere, because the cost is very high. And also it has significant advantages, but every application it may not be the solution. So that's the reason the gearbox, even today, it exists at many places, uh, because of the huge advantages of using the gearbox.
So before, before starting that, why we have to use a gearbox for any other applications? The main purpose of a gearbox, if you take it in consideration, is mainly to transmit power from one point of place to another point. That is how the power will be coming. Normally, any power developed will be called a prime mover. We call it as prime mover. Can be a electrical motor, or it can be a internal combustion engine. You can have these two things. But internal combustion engines and prime movers like motors and all, they give you certain power at certain speed. Once you know the power and speed, you can calculate the torque. But we may, for our requirements of our equipment where we are using it, what happens is the same power is okay, but the speed and torque may not be suitable for our equipment where we are using. That means the speed, the equipment what we are manufacturing or what we are going to use may not be directly can couple to our prime mover, because its power, its torque and speed will be different, and our requirement will be different will be there. To make it, to require torque to to our equipment to work, we may have to use something in between the prime mover and our mechanical equipment. Like let us take a crane. When a crane, something we are moving it, there will be motor, AC motor will be there. From AC motor to crane, up and down, we are moving it. But we cannot have the same speed and other things. So we require some mechanism to change the speed and torque. It can be various things are there, like belt drive you can use, or you can use a chain drive. And one more thing is a gears you can use it. So out of all the things, gearbox, gears reduction is the best one out of all the things, because it got its own advantages compared with chain and belt drive. So we'll start discussing. I'm not going to talk much about why the good and other things at present stage. We'll talk about the gears and gearbox, what is the advantage of. Compared with that, I will be comparing. So first we'll see a typical gearbox. You can see here, it is rotating, is a single stage gearbox which are rotating. So as I explained, gearbox is used to transfer energy from its place of generation. Place of generation is your prime mover, and to location where it does work. So depends on your work where we are using it, we will be transmitting the power to that. The gearbox can be two types. One is it can be a step up drive or step down drive. Step up means here in the case of step up, when we are talking a step down, the words what we use step up and step down is with respect to speed. It is not with respect to torque. We always talk step up and step down with reference to speed only, not with reference to torque. So step up means increasing the speed. Step down means reducing the speed. But most of the cases, 90% of the cases, what will happen is we use mostly a reduction in speed drives, and that is step down gearboxes only we use. Why step down gearboxes are we use? Because step down gearboxes, what means the speed is coming down. And speed is coming down, what happens? Your torque increases, because we require higher torque, particularly when you are starting and moving the element from initial lower speed to very high speed when you are moving. So always we go for a higher torque purpose. So always, most of the cases, 95% will be using a step down drive only. It doesn't mean that step up drives are not there, but chances are very rarely we will be using step up drives, because the output shaft torque always will be more than the input shaft. So they are called reduction gearboxes. So always we talk about reduction gearbox. Reduction gearbox means here this step speed will be coming down and torque will be increasing it. So what types of gearboxes what we are taking is generally 4 types with reference to the type of gears we use. One is called spur and helical gearbox. Second one we call it as a bevel gearbox. Third one we call it as a worm gearbox. Next one is a planetary gearbox. It is the spur and helical gearbox, bevel gearbox or worm gearbox. Why we are calling it as separate means because the input in the gearbox to the output side. That means depends on the your application. Suppose input shaft to output shaft there. If you require a parallel shafts, then you have to go for spur and helical gear. If you want to have and at 90 degrees the transmission has to be moved, you can use a bevel gearbox. If you have a non-intersecting and non-parallel gearbox, if you want to use it, and very high reduction you want, you have to go for a worm gearbox. The fourth one is a planetary gearbox, which nowadays is becoming more and more useful in the EVs, in particularly electrical vehicles of 4-wheelers. More and more planetary gearbox people are using it. It is mostly planetary gearbox people use a spur and helical gears only, but you get a very high reductions. Depends on the methodology of manufacturing. In this case, what happens is your output to input will be almost inline. Inline means one input axis and output axis will be in the same line. It will be there. In that case, planetary gearboxes we can use it. One after another, we'll study now. Worm and worm wheel. These are all intersecting axis. We call it as intersecting axis, non-intersecting. The previous one is an intersecting axis. It is a non-intersecting axis, and they are not parallel also. In this case, we'll see that picture. Seeing that, we'll understand this. So you can go. This is one important thing in work compared with spur and helical gears and bevel gears. You can get very high reductions. You can get it in one single stage itself. Depends on the selection. You can go up to 100:1. You can go reduction very easily. We can use worm and worm wheel. Low noise, because input-output speed will be input speed will be more and output speed will be very, very less. And combination of we use normally in a worm and worm wheel. Normally we use different materials, either steel and bronze or steel and cast iron. We may use it. So in that case, noise also will be less here. But all these things advantages will go back worst because its efficiency is very, very low. Okay, I'll talk to you non-reversible. What it is non-reversible means low efficiency. It will be 30 to 80% efficiency only. It cannot be having very high efficiency because the reductions will be more. The important thing why efficiency is low is because this is a non-intersecting axis. Just I'll show you the picture, then you may understand. When you come here, you can see, sir, here, this is your worm, that is input shaft. Here to fix the motor, they have given a flange here. This is an output shaft. If you really understand here, when you're rotating this, the input shaft, it moves this one, not by just like a spur and helical gear, it is only rotary motion. Here, it is not the rotary motion, not only rotary motion, more of a sliding action, linear motion will be there. Linear motion means actually this doesn't move, but because it is a worm, the movement will be like a screw and thread, screw and nut. The axis, the movement will be like in a sliding action will be there. The movement from worm to worm wheel will be through a sliding action, not through a rotary action, rotary motion. In the case of spur and helical gears, what happens is there is a contact and continuous rotary motion will be there. In the helical gears, slight sliding motion will be there. Whereas in the case of worm and worm wheel, the motion is 80 to 90% through a sliding action only. Because the sliding action is more, wherever sliding action is happening, lot of heat will get generated. Just you can take your hand, put on your table or where you are sitting it, you just slide your finger. What happens is more heat gets generated. Whereas if you rotate your finger on the top of it, heat will not be generated. When you are sliding means it is moving on a linear movement. When you are moving, you will get more and more heat gets generated. So anywhere, whether it is gears or anything, any sliding motion will get more heat generation will be there. Because more heat generation will be there means more loss of efficiency will be less, because heat generation will give you loss of power will be there, heat generation will cause it. Because of that, we always will be power efficiency will be very, very low. That's why we get 30 to 80% only. Whereas in the case of spur gears, helical gears, and bevel gears and other things, the movement is more of a rolling action, but sliding action. Whereas helical gears and spiral bevel gears will have slight sliding action will be there. That's why slight heating will be there. You have to cool it. Whereas in the case of worm and worm wheel, there is always more sliding action will be there. So more sliding action means more heat transmission, more heat development. More heat development means its efficiency will be less will be there. So one more important thing is you have to do continuous cooling, better cooling you have to make it so that your temperature will not increase and heat will be taken away. So compared to sometimes spur gears and helical gears with a grease lubrication at a lower speeds, you can happily forget it, and a little lubrication is okay. Whereas in the case of bevel gears, worm and worm wheel, lubrication is very, very important. Required lubrication has to be calculated, and so much coolant always you should be did. So no worm and worm wheel can go without lubrication. Please note this point well. Whether it can be some lubrication or a continuous lubrication is a different thing, but lubrication is a must. Okay. So more heat. Okay. Now one more thing is coming is return can be made non-reversible. What is non-reversible? You can see this picture now, sir. Here what is happening? There is a screw here. There is a worm and there is a worm wheel and it is connected to a ball screw here. Particularly when you are machining centers or anything, any upward movement, vertical movement when you are moving it, vertical movement where you will be moving through a screw and this one. Nowadays, motor will be there in the servo section. When you take a motor can be directly connected and up and down you can move it. But even then, suppose power fails, what happens? Because the ball screw is there, there is every chance that the vertical slide or whatever vertical connected this one, there is every chance that it can come down. So you have to put either a brake in the motor or something else we have to do. In that case, you can have a worm and worm wheel application. You can have it. Worm and worm wheel application when you are making, what happens is, in the case of spur gears and helical gears, what happens is input shaft, if you rotate, output shaft can be rotated. And similarly, if you move the output shaft, input shaft also can rotate. Both the case of spur and helical gear and bevel gears also. Whereas in this case, if you only input shaft when you are moving, then only output shaft starts moving it. If you try to rotate the output shaft, the input shaft will not rotate. And it will work like a locking mechanism. That is called self-locking, we call it as. That can be made possible by using a worm and worm wheel. When it can self-locking will take place is if it is a lead angle, we call it as for a worm and worm, in a worm or thread, it is like worm is like a thread only. Thread will have a lead angle. If the lead angle is less than 6 degrees when you make it, if the lead angle, then there is every chance that your rotation will not happen. So for this slide, if you are connected for this ball screw, if you are connected a vertical slide something, and motor power has stopped, when you're doing some operation, suddenly power has gone. If the power has gone because of the weight, it should not, this axis should not rotate here and damage the other side of equipment. So to avoid that, if you do worm and worm wheel, if you make it, it will not allow it to rotate back because there will be locking will be there here between worm and worm wheel, so that it will not have reverse rotation. That's why we call it as can be made non-reversible if you properly make worm and worm wheel design such that your lead angle will be not more than 6 degrees. So now sizing or designing of a gearbox. The important aspects is as soon as you have been given, you have decided to design a gearbox. certain things you have to start worrying about it. One of the important aspect is it has to be designed for its required load and application. Required load means what is the load you are going to from the gearbox has to take care. That means how much load means, in other words, it is not only the force, it is converted into power or torque. The two important factors for any gearbox required is output shaft, which is connected to your equipment. The gearbox where you are connecting to your equipment, what is the power or torque to be transmitted, and at what speed. These are the two important things, three important things, either power and speed or torque and speed. These two will indicate you the load in coming to the picture. Force will be converted into torque and other things. What is the power and speed? Two important things. Or torque and speed are important. For the torque and speed, you have to design the gearbox. So application point of view, what is the application means? Is an application for what you are using is a continuous operation or intermediate operation you are using it, or a heavily loaded application, or it is going to work for 24 hours or only a few hours you are applying it. Third one comes to this one, whether you are going to operate this gearbox at one speed or different speeds also will come into picture. So depends on the number of speeds and operation and other things, the type of motor what you select will vary. Depends on the working, that is if it is continuous operation of the same speed and same power you are operating, or different speeds you are operating, your selection of motor also will change further. So application point of view, and where you are putting this gearbox, environment also will come into picture. Application means environment also. It is outside the factory or inside the factory, or a place where the temperature is very high or the temperature is normal. All the conditions, these are all the applications what we are using. Vertically you are mounting or horizontally mounting. Are you making this standalone system or connected to your mechanical equipment directly to gearbox? All these things are comes under application. What application we are using it? They based on that. So load is power or torque and speed. Application means where you are using, what type of application you are using it, the continuous operation or intermediate operation, all those applications. So that is an application where we are using. Environment also will come into picture. This is what we have to do there. Second one is the gearbox what you selected, it should be compact, which means optimized compact. It should not be too big to occupy more space. It should occupy as less as possible, space as possible, and cost effective. Cost effective means price should be as low as possible, so that the use of the gearbox should not be causing you a lot of spending, initial equipment spending, and also during the maintenance point of view also. So it should be cost effective, and comes to the efficiency and efficient. Efficient means it should work when you are operating it without much of a problem. Its transmission efficiency should be as high as possible, and it should not fail at any regularly. So such a way you have to make a gearbox so that it works for quite long number of years for the life what you have planned to do with it. It may be for 1 lakh revolutions, 1 lakh hours, or it may be for 2 lakh hours. That you have to consider it. For that number of hours, it should work without failure. You have to finalize and then make the gearbox. So these two into consideration, we have to make our design of gearbox has to be planned and designed. These are the major things, important things, first initial. Okay, to achieve this, what are all the factors we have to consider? We'll see here. Factors to be considered. One is the service factor. Service factor, people can also call it as a factor of safety. Why I'm using service factor here instead of factor of safety, I'll tell you. People, one way it is a factor of safety. How much safety you are giving it, service factor. Service factor means, important is how many hours of working. The equipment what you are going to use using this gearbox, connecting the gearbox what you are designing, if you are connecting on an equipment which is working for 8 hours, it is going to work in a company, or it is going to work for 12 hours or 24 hours. So based on that, the service factor can be decided. If it is 12 hours, you have to use one service factor. If it is 24 hours, something else. Something if you are using 8 hours, a service factor has to be considered. That we'll see during the course of this one. So hours of working, how much? That also we have to clearly write. Before designing a gearbox, we have to write down all these factors on a piece of paper. How many hours my equipment is going to work. Based on that also, your service factor will come into picture. That you have to note down. Then uniform or non-uniform load or shock loads. That means if if the gearbox is connected to your equipment and it is just running continuously with the same power, same speed if it is working, and no loads are changing, that means loads are not at all changing, if then that is we call it as a uniform, this one. Continuously same speed, same power, load is there. So same power it will be drawing it. So uniform load we can consider. Non-uniform load means the variation of torque and speed. During the course of torque and speed, how it will vary if the load on the equipment is changing continuously. So, sometimes it will be if you are moving something like a 2 tons load is coming, sometimes 4 tons load is coming. Based on and different speeds when you are operating it, then it is called a non-uniform load. Different speeds, different loads, that is called a non-uniform load. Particularly if you take the case of our crane when you are operating it in a crane, you might have designed for 5-ton crane, but you will be operating sometime 1 ton you may lift, 2 tons you may lift full 5 tons. Continuously you may not lift the 5 tons. And if you are having 2-speed operation, one you may be operating for just for lifting low speed, and after reaching to some height, you may go at a faster speed. So non-uniform. And shock loads means sometimes you may inch, maybe I don't know how many of you operated a crane or anything. If you are operating crane, if you have seen it also, sometimes they give a jerk. That means they inch it. Inch it means they give a quite load and again they stop it. Starting, stopping. And sometimes instead of jerking, when you are making it, shock loads will come into picture. Whether shock loads are coming. Suppose a chip conveyor is there. If you are making this one, conveyor sometime it may be carrying, let us say 5 tons it is carrying. Suddenly in the 5 tons, you may try to put more load into that. 5 tons may become 6 tons. So sudden shock loads, variations are coming. That also we should consider. Based on that, service factor has to be fixed. So these are also you have to note down on a piece of paper before starting a design of gearbox. Then third one is operating at elevated temperatures. Where the gearbox we are going to put it, are we going to keep it in a controlled atmosphere or in a different atmosphere? Suppose if you are putting that gearbox somewhere outside the factory, exposed to environment, water, dust and everything, then you have to think different way for the elevated temperature. That is one thing. Elevated temperatures means suppose the gearbox is you are putting it at a place where the temperature is like a furnace or casting yard somewhere. If you are casting yards and this one when you are putting it, the temperatures will be ovens and all very, very high it will be there. Maybe 200 degrees, 300 degrees, but environment may instead of ambient temperature, instead of 40 degrees, it may go up to 80 degrees also, or 100 degrees it may go. So based on that, also you have to think about the service factor we have to give it. You may have to give a slightly higher service factor. We have to give it. That also we have to consider for making a service factor. So normally if the hours of working is 8, and if it is a uniform load and you are working in a controlled environment, service factor of 1 is okay for you. But if it is having 12 to 24 hours of working, non-uniform load, then you can service factor of 1.5 is more than sufficient for most of the applications. No, sir, my application is such that very heavy shock loads will be coming and temperature is very, very high. You can go up to service factor of 2, you can go with. What is meant by the service factor 2 means whatever is the load you have considered for actual calculations, you have to multiply with the service factor and take, that means let us say the torque is 100 Newton meters, 100 Newton meters is there. If you consider service factor of 2, if you consider 2 into 100, 200 Newton meters for the, you have to design the gearbox for 200 Newton meters, mainly meant for torque multiplication it is. Suppose 1.5 if you take into 100, so 1150 Newton meters you have to design the gearbox. Because it is a non-uniform, it may be operating at 24 hours, so you have considered service factor of 1.5. So in other words, it is going to be called as factor of safety. But how to decide a factor of safety? Considering hours of working, uniform load, and operating at elevated temperature. This is very, very important for selection the torque what it is coming, and it will increase the torque actually required and but designed for more than the required torque because of the non-uniform load and hours of working is more. This is one important thing you have to consider.
Things are all visible. Generally, as we know, in the mechanical things, all are visible things. You can feel it, you can see, and then you can assess their function. So one such element, we can say today, let us first touch the bearings in a gearbox. As we know, all of us, we know what is a bearing. So bearings generally separate the two relatively motion elements, two elements which are in relative motion. There are two kinds of relative motion in any engineering. One is sliding, linear, and another is rotary. So necessarily one has got stationary element and another is moving element. So these, wherever there is a joint of stationary element and moving element, let it be linear or rotary, that is the point of concern for mechanical engineer. How to deal with that kind of joint. This joint is called dynamic joint. There are two kind of joints. One is a static joint and is a dynamic joint. Static joint is one where you just bolt two surfaces together, that's it. There is no relative motion for lifetime. But here it is not like that. It is a joint. It is a joint of concern, actually. It is a dynamic joint because the relative motion takes place at that particular place. How to deal with it? Way back, there are the most simplest joint is a sliding joint. So two things, just keep one or another and keep sliding. So it becomes a dynamic joint. So the guideways, what we call guideways. And similar concept can also be used for rotary joints. You have got a bush, you have got a shaft. Shaft is stationary, bush is rotating. So it becomes a joint. It becomes a bearing. It could be anything. Shaft can be stationary, bush can be rotating. So one is a stator, another is a rotor. So anything can be stator, anything can be rotor. But now, to look at this particular joint, so what are the point of concern? One is the wear and tear. Wear and tear means what? When two things rub on each other, both are bound to lose their surface properties, losing their dimensions, and the clearances, whatever you have maintained initially, will increase minute by minute, hour by hour, and clearance will be increased, backlash will increase, etc. So these are bad for accuracies of the machine. The machine is supposed to do what? Machining, turning, milling, etc. Whatever the inaccuracies are there in these joints, they will directly reflect on the accuracy of the component. Accuracy of the components are demanding. Sometimes we see IT6, at least in case of from turning and milling, we expect IT6 class. And that IT6 class straight away comes from this dynamic joint. So these dynamic joints have to be controlled. And then one is the clearance, then the speed. Rubbing velocity is very, very less. If you increase the velocity, then the wear and tear will increase. Then how to get the high velocities? Why do you need high velocities? High production. You cannot afford today the demand that we cannot go on slow speed. We have to go at very, very high speed. Today, cutting tools are available at 200 meters per minute, minimum 200, 250. But earlier days, when that cutting tool was only remaining the HSS, where it is hardly 15 to 20, maximum 30 meters per minute. Today it is 10 times more. So you need to cater to these production needs. So you need to improve these dynamic joints. Then came the rolling bearing. Whatever you are seeing, whatever we see, deep groove ball bearing, angular contact ball bearing, etc., etc. They are all called rolling bearings. In case of sliding bearings, you have got only two items. One is stationary member, another is either rotary or sliding member. But here, in this particular case, there is yet another third member, which is called rolling member, what you are seeing. So this rolling member plays a very, very important role in case of this dynamic joints, bearings. And this rolling is applied not only to rotary, but also for linear joints. You must have heard the ball guideways, LM guideways, etc., etc. They all work on this principle of rolling. So this rolling has got a lot of advantages. You can go very, very high speed, and wear and tear will be very less because of the rolling friction. As we know, rolling friction is at least 10 times lesser when compared to the sliding friction. So you can go much, much better high speeds for this bearing without losing the without increasing the runout at this joint. Here you see, this is the rolling point in the inner race. This is the rolling point in the outer race. So things are very hard. Balls are hard. Races are hard. So all hardened material, and that there is a rolling joint. So they have got a very, very long life. And even after years of use, hardly any play is created or backlash is created. So that is where this rolling bearing comes into picture. Today, nobody talks of bush bearing. Bush bearings are there still, of course, but low speed application. But today, what we are talking is a state of art application. That is a rolling application. So to come to our rescue for this dynamic joint, we have battery of bearings, series of many kinds of bearings. They have their own application. So here you see the most simplest is this, what is called deep groove ball bearing. Now, let us come to the other elements, shafts and keys. Let us see what are the parts played by the shafts and keys. Keys, shafts, and gates. Let us give a key. All of us know what is a key. Key is used for transmitting the mechanical power. That's all. So here is a simple application. Let us say there is a lever and there is a hinge. If I don't have this element, if I remove this element, so it becomes a hinge joint, which cannot transmit the torque. If I have to transmit the torque, you have to create this key. So this key will become the transmitting element between driver and driver. So now if you apply a load here, this I have shown it is a lever, but it is not a lever. It can be gear, it can be pulley, it can be anything like this. This is the size of the gear, the size of the pulley, where at the periphery there is a driving load, tangential load. From this full circle, I have just cut as a small piece, calling a lever. But don't consider this a lever, it is a pulley or it is a gear. So here, what are the factors? When you apply a load on the radius of the driver, like pulley or gear, so this load is felt by the key. Is felt by the key. So now it is the key which is responsible to bear this load. The load which is appearing at the periphery of this, multiplied by the radius of the pulley, say in this case it is 500, theoretically I have put. So the product of this load, so many kg, multiplied with the load, they multiply by the distance or radius of the pulley or pitch circle radius of the gear. So this becomes what is the torque. The definition of torque is this. So this torque induces enormous responsibility on this key. Key is located at the periphery of the shaft, but load is applied much far when compared to the shaft. Here you will appreciate that if this load is 1 kg, this effect of this 1 kg, 1 kg into 500. So 1 into 500, 500 kg mm, that is the unit of the torque. So this torque has got a highly magnifying effect on this load. So load on the key will become to the ratio of 50:500. If the diameter of the pulley is 1 meter, diameter of the shaft is 100, that is radius is 50. So 500 by 50, 10 times. If it is 1 kg here, the load applied on the face of the key, which is trying to break the key, etc. So it becomes 10 times more. It is 100, this is 500 kg. So the key has to be designed for that magnified force. Shafts. Let us say what happens. Why the shafts are how the shaft plays in a gearbox. A simple gearbox which is shown here. There is a motor. Motor specifications is this: 20 HP, 1500 RPM, actually rotated 1440 RPM, and it gives a torque of 10 kg of meter. From same 2 pi nt by 4500 equation, we are getting a 10 kg. So that is the prime mover which is attached. And this is our spindle, main spindle, where the tool is there waiting, and this is a component. And you want to machine this component using this drive. See what happens. You don't want to use this machine at 1440 RPM. Machine is what is capable at 1440 RPM. If you give the entire thing, it will be too much. For this, it will not honor the cutting speed. See, you have to rotate the workpiece to honor the recommended cutting speeds and feeds, right? If you are using a carbide tool, which says its cutting velocity is, permitted cutting velocity is 150 meters per minute. Diameter of job will, let us say, 200. So the peripheral speed of the shaft of the workpiece should be 150 meters per minute. Pi dm by 1000. Pi dm by 1000 should result in the permitted velocity. So our requirement comes from this cutting zone. This is the speed I want, 500 RPM. But motor is giving 1440 RPM. So I have to modify the speed without sacrificing the power. At the same time, I want entire 20 HP power here. Otherwise, my cutting will not be efficient. Depth of cut I cannot give. So in such cases, let us see what is that. This is a gear here. 100 there. Let us see. PCD is 100. And here we know 10 kg meter torque. Torque we know by now. We understood what is the 10 kg meter. It's a product of force into distance. Need not be a lever. It can be a gear. It can be pulley. So 10 kg meter means, now you see here, I will make it more clear. Same thing I have shown in the end view. This is the motor shaft, which is generating a 10 kg meter torque driver. 10 kg meter is nothing. The radius of the gear is 50. Diameter of the gear is 100. So the product of tangential load and the radius of pitch radius of the gear should be 10 kg of meter or 10,000 kg of mm. Radius of the gear I know. To reach this 10,000, there has to be a force of 200 kg. So this motor is able to push or generate a load of 200 kg at a distance of 50. 50 is the radius of the gear. So by this much force, the driven gear is getting pushed. This is the driver. One pulley is a driver having a capability of a tangential force of 200 kg. So with this 200 kg, it is pushing a larger gear on the other shaft, which is having a 200 diameter. It's a 100 diameter, now it is a 200 diameter. So at this point of contact, push load on this gear and push load on this gear will be the same at this point of contact. But this 200 push kg, 200 load is resulting in a larger torque on this gear because you are pushing this at a radius of 100. 200 into 100. So it will become double. So this will become 20 kg meter. Instead of 10,000, it will become 20,000 product. So this shaft is subjected to double the torque. Instead of 10 kg meter, this will be having an experience of 20 kg meter. This 20 kg meter is nothing but pushing force of the driver multiplied by the radius of the driven. So force into distance, force into distance. So product 20 kg meter means the shaft has to be a stronger shaft. So now, similarly, like that, this keeps on getting multiplied, and here this is what is called 1:2 reduction. If you reduce the speed, you are increasing the torque. You reduce the speed to half. If this rotates at 1440 RPM, speed of this will be half of it, 720 RPM. But the torque will be doubled. So product of speed and torque will be the same. Here speed is 720 and the torque is 20. Here speed is 1440, torque is 10. So product of this is the same, means HP of the motor and HP available on the shaft is the same. There is no power loss. Speed has gone. That is to your advantage. You wanted less speed without a loss of power. So that you achieve. Similarly, one more step of 1:2 will further enhance the torque and will further reduce the speed. Again, 100 to 200. So 1:2 reduction, 1:2 reduction means total 1:4 reduction. 1440 RPM will appear as 1/4 of that. 1440, 360 or 365 RPM, this job will rotate, but gives full power. Torque will also further enhance. Here 10 became 20, here became 20, became 40 because speed is reducing. Torque is doubling. So at this shaft, ultimately, you have a very good power, same power of 20 HP, and torque is also available, 40 kg of meter. Very, very strong situation. It can take any amount of cut. Power is available, torque is available.
Okay, once again. So we'll discuss about how the gears lubrication will take place and gearbox lubrication and how much is the quantity, what type of lubrication to be used. We'll have to discuss because gearboxes without lubrication, it is very, very tough for us because a lot of heat gets generated. The heat has to be taken out and cooling has to be done for the gear lubrication so that overall temperature will not increase, and the increase in the temperature will cause problems for the, not only for the gears, the bearings which are working inside, because bearings also, gears may take little heat more when compared with bearings. Bearings, if they go beyond temperature of 75 to 80 degrees, slowly it will become decolorized, and once it decolorized, they start deteriorating very fast. So it is not only the lubrication of the gears, it is also lubrication of bearings also. So what is the purpose of lubrication? Now we'll see. See, as I do the sliding and rolling contact between gear teeth, a lot of heat gets generated, as I was telling, because spur gears are helical. Spur gears, if you take, it is made of rolling contact only. If you go for helical gears, bevel gears or worm gears, both rolling and sliding will take place. In worm wheels, it will be worm and worm wheel. The sliding is very, very high because sliding is very, very high. Any not only gears or anywhere. If you're rolling, if it is taking, because continuous rolling, it will. They say rolling stone won't catch any dust. Like that, rolling will not generate much of heat, but sliding generate a lot of heat in this one. So sliding bearings, types of sliding gears like spiral bevel gears, or in the even worm and worm wheel, they will have a lot of sliding contact will be there. So a lot of heat gets generated, and it has to be taken out from that position. So we have to limit the temperature rise caused by the rolling and sliding friction. So promote sliding between the teeth and reduce the cushion. One more important point is not only taking out this one, in between the two contact point, we require a thin layer of lubrication should be there. Thin layer of lubrication, what happens, because at contact point, if the thin layer of lubrication is there, it reduces the coefficient of friction. Once the coefficient of friction is reduces, the heating generated also will come into, will reduce. So not only the heat generated has to be taken away, and also the coefficient of friction to be reduced. So always there should be a thin layer of lubrication should be there between the two teeth which are in contact. Which one, again, it will reduce the tooth wear and premature failure of gears. So these are the purpose of it for gear lubrication. What are all the types of lubrication we do? It can be normally 3 methods. We may use two types of greases. Normally we use either grease or oil. Grease lubrication, what is one thing. Second, in oil lubrication, again, 2 types are there. One is splash lubrication. Another one is called a forced oil lubrication.